The villa's ancient wooden door slammed shut with a finality that echoed like a gunshot through the olive groves, sealing Mackenzie inside the life she'd fought so hard to reclaim. "You're not family anymore," her brother spat, his voice cracking like dry earth under the relentless Andalusian sun. As Madison's hand slipped from hers, warm and trembling, a silent promise fracturing in the heat. In that instant, the scent of salt-kissed sea air turned bitter, carrying away the ghosts of laughter from summers past, leaving only the hollow ache of erasure. Mackenzie Rivera had always known the Spanish countryside held secrets deeper than its labyrinthine whitewashed villages. Born to American expatriates who traded Wall Street bustle for the sun-baked hills of Ronda, Spain, in the 90s, she'd grown up chasing fireflies under starlit skies that felt both foreign and fiercely her own. Her parents, Elena and Jack Rivera, had built their dream there. A sprawling finca called Casa del Sol, with terracotta roofs that glowed like embers at sunset and vineyards that whispered promises of forever. Elena, a former art curator from Boston with a laugh like wind chimes, and Jack, a retired software engineer from Seattle whose hands were forever stained with soil from tending the grapes, had infused the place with an unshakable American optimism. Picnics on checkered blankets, barbecues with store-bought ribs shipped from the States, and endless debates over baseball scores broadcast on crackling shortwave radios. It was a bubble of transatlantic nostalgia, fragile yet defiant against the old-world rhythms of their adopted home. Mackenzie, the eldest at 32, had inherited her mother's sharp green eyes and her father's stubborn jawline. She was the quiet architect of the family's joys, sketching blueprints for expansions to the villa while her siblings, 28-year-old Madison, the golden child artist with sun-kissed waves and a canvas always at her elbow, and 26-year-old Mateo, the restless entrepreneur whose tech startups flickered like distant stars, chased their wilder dreams. The three of them had been inseparable once, a trio forged in the fire of expatriate isolation. They'd built forts from grapevines, whispered secrets in the cool shadows of the bodega, and sworn oaths under the ancient cork oak that they'd always protect one another, no matter what. But no matter what had a way of unraveling when truths long buried clawed their way to the surface. It started on a sweltering August afternoon 3 years prior, the kind where the air shimmered like a mirage over the winding roads to Malaga. Mackenzie had returned from a solo hike in the Sierra de las Nieves, her backpack heavy with wild thyme and the weight of a decision that had simmered for years. At 29, she built a life of quiet competence, overseeing the villa's agritourism rentals, her designs blending Moorish arches with modern solar panels, all while burying the ache of loving women in the pages of dog-eared novels smuggled from Madrid bookstores. Madison, her sister, had always been the one to notice the shadows under her eyes, the way Mackenzie's gaze lingered too long on the female tour guides with their easy smiles and wind-tousled hair. That day, as the family gathered for Elena's famous paella on the shaded patio, saffron threads dancing in the steam, the clink of wine glasses toasting another harvest, Mackenzie's resolve cracked. Madison sat across from her, sketching idly on a napkin, her pencil tracing the curve of a stranger's jaw from a magazine photo. Their eyes met, and in that electric pause Mackenzie saw it, the mirror of her own hidden longing. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. The words tumbled out like stones skipping across the Guadalhorce River. About the women she'd loved in secret, the Barcelona painter with ink-stained fingers, the American backpacker whose kisses tasted of salt and freedom. "I'm gay. And I can't pretend anymore." The silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. Jack set down his fork first, his calloused hand reaching across the table to squeeze hers. "Kiddo," he said, his Seattle drawl soft as fog rolling in off the Pacific, "we've known you were carrying something heavy for years. We're just glad you're putting it down." Elena, tears glistening like dew on her lashes, pulled Mackenzie into a hug that smelled of lavender and home. "Our girl," she whispered. "Always our girl. Love isn't a switch you flip. It's the light that's always been on." Madison's reaction was a whirlwind of color, her cheeks flushing rose, her eyes wide with a mix of relief and something deeper unspoken. She flung her arms around Mackenzie, laughing through sobs. "I thought I was the only one hiding," she confessed later that night, as they sat on the villa's rooftop under a canopy of stars, sharing a bottle of the family's own Tempranillo. Mateo's acceptance came quieter, a gruff nod over his phone screen, but it was real. He even cracked a joke about double dates in the village square. In the months that followed, Casa del Sol bloomed with a new kind of light. Elena hosted coming-out barbecues for local LGBTQ+ youth from Rhonda's hidden corners, her American flair turning them into potlucks with rainbow-layered cakes and playlists of Gloria Gaynor. Jack, ever the fixer, installed discreet pride flags in the garden, fluttering like defiant petals against the conservative whispers of their Andalusian neighbors. Mackenzie and Madison grew closer, their bond evolving from sisterly to something profound, a shared vulnerability that knit them tighter than blood alone. Late-night confessions turned to tentative touches, Madison's fingers brushing Mackenzie's as they painted murals on the bodega walls, symbols of intertwined vines and blooming roses. It was romance in whispers, a slow burn fueled by stolen glances and the poetry of Lorca read aloud by firelight. But beneath the joy, fissures formed. Mateo, buried in his latest venture, a app connecting expat winemakers, grew distant, his visits sporadic, laced with passive barbs about family priorities. Madison, thriving in her art residencies across Europe, began to pull away too, her sketches shifting from vibrant abstracts to shadowed figures, isolation etched in every stroke. Elena noticed her maternal radar unerring. "They're scared, Mac," she said one crisp October morning, as they harvested olives under skies bruised with autumn clouds. "Not of you, but of what your truth means for the image they've built. Give them time." Time, however, proved a cruel vintner. The winter of Elena's 60th birthday brought the first frost to their world. A routine checkup in Malaga uncovered the shadow in her lungs. Stage 4 aggressive, the doctors said in clipped Spanish that Jack translated with a voice like gravel. The villa, once a sanctuary, became a vigil. Elena's laughter faded to raspy whispers, her hands, once deft with brushes, now clutching Mackenzie's with a fierceness that broke her heart. "Promise me," Elena murmured one night, her bed a nest of quilts overlooking the moonlit groves, "that you'll live loud mi amor. For all of us who couldn't." Jack held on for 6 months after, his grief a quiet erosion, until a heart attack claimed him in the vineyard mid-prune, as if the land itself had decided to take him back. The funerals were a blur of black veils and American hymns sung in the village church, the pews filled with expats and locals who'd come to honor the Rivera's open-hearted legacy. Mackenzie stood between her siblings, Madison's arm linked fiercely through hers, Mateo's shoulder a rigid wall. In the receiving line, neighbors murmured condolences laced with pride. "Your parents built a bridge here, for all of us." Yet in the will's reading, under the notary's stern gaze in a Seville office paneled in dark oak, the bridges began to burn. Elena and Jack had left the bulk of Casa del Sol to Mackenzie. The villa, the vineyards, the dreams they'd nurtured together. Citing her stewardship, her heart aligned with their vision of a home for the marginalized. Madison and Mateo received generous trusts, but the property's heart went to their eldest sister. "She'll keep it alive," Jack's letter read, his handwriting steady as ever. "With love that doesn't bend." The betrayal came swift as a sirocco wind. That evening, back at the villa, as thunder rumbled over the Serrania de Ronda, Mateo exploded. "This is bullshit," he snarled, pacing the living room where family photos chronicled their sunlit youth. "Mom and Dad pit us against each other? For what? Your little rainbow revolution." Madison, who'd been silent through the reading, her face pale as the marble saints in the church, finally spoke. Her voice was a blade, honed by months of unspoken resentment. "We grew up here too, Kenzie. But you changed everything. Made us the villains in your story. And now this. It's like they erased us first." Mackenzie reeled, the words landing like blows. "Erased? They loved us all the same. This isn't about taking. It's about trust." But Madison's eyes, those eyes that had once mirrored her own longing, hardened. "Trust? You came out and suddenly we're the ones who have to adapt. Parades in the garden, strangers in our home. I can't even." She trailed off, glancing at Mateo, who nodded grimly. The air thickened with the unsaid. Madison's own buried affections, the women she'd loved and lost in silence, fearing the family fracture Mackenzie had ignited. The argument spiraled, voices rising over the storm's howl, until Mateo delivered the killing stroke. "We're selling our shares. Force a buyout if you have to. But we're done pretending this is family." He stormed out, tires screeching on the gravel drive. Madison lingered, her hand hovering as if to reach for Mackenzie's, but she turned instead, whispering, "I'm sorry," like a ghost slipping through cracks. In the days that followed, the erasure was methodical. Mateo lawyered up from his Barcelona flat, emails cold as steel. Partition the land, liquidate assets. Madison vanished into a residency in Granada, her social media a curated void. No mentions of Casa del Sol, no traces of the sister she'd once sketched in secret. Mackenzie wandered the villa alone, the silence deafening. The pride flags drooped in the rain. The mural she'd painted with Madison peeled at the edges, roses bleeding into gray. Yet in the depths of that winter, as frost etched the windows like lace, a spark reignited. It came in the form of Sophia, a local potter from Ronda's artisan quarter, with earth-toned skin and hands scarred from clay wheels, her laugh a rumble like distant thunder. They'd met at Elena's memorial garden planting, Sophia's stall at the market offering terracotta urns etched with vines. "Your mother's spirit lingers here," Sophia said, her Andalusian accent wrapping around Mackenzie like a shawl. "Like roots that won't let go." Their romance unfolded gently, a counterpoint to the storm. A walk through the Puente Nuevo's misty arches, hands brushing over stone balustrades. Shared dinners of gazpacho and manchego under the cork oak, where Sophia's stories of queer resilience in conservative Spain wove new threads into Mackenzie's frayed heart. "Love isn't inheritance," Sophia murmured one night, tracing the lines of Mackenzie's palm by lantern light. "It's what you build when the foundations crack." But the siblings' siege pressed on. By spring, the lawyers circled, demanding valuations that would gut the vineyards. Mateo arrived unannounced one April dawn, his SUV kicking up dust like an accusation. "Sign the papers, Kinsey. Move on." Madison trailed behind, thinner now, her eyes shadowed, clutching a sketchbook like a shield. The confrontation erupted in the courtyard, jasmine heavy in the air, the sun a merciless judge. "You're destroying everything they stood for," Mackenzie cried, her voice raw. "They accepted me, us loved us without condition. And this is how you honor that. By erasing me." Mateo scoffed, but Madison stepped forward, her facade crumbling. "It's not erasure," she whispered, tears carving tracks through dust on her cheeks. "It's survival. When you came out, it forced me to face everything. The women I loved, the life I hid. Mom and Dad embraced you, but I felt like the outsider. Like my silence made me less." The admission hung, a bridge half-built. Mateo's face twisted. Anger, guilt, the echo of their parents' optimism warring within. In that charged silence, Mackenzie saw it. Not just betrayal, but the mirror of her own fears, reflected back threefold. "We were all hiding," she said softly, extending her hand. "But erasing each other? That's not survival. That's the real death." The storm broke then, not with rain but with Madison's sob, collapsing into Mackenzie's arms. Mateo hesitated, then joined. The three of them a tangled knot on the tiles, the villa's heart beating beneath them. No grand resolution followed. The papers weren't signed that day. Instead they talked, haltingly, painfully, through the night, unearthing resentments like buried roots. Mateo's ambition fueled by a fear of fading into the family's shadow. Madison's art, a veil for her own unspoken loves. Mackenzie's stewardship, a armor against abandonment. By summer's cusp, compromises bloomed. The villa stayed whole, shared in trust, with Mateo funding expansions and Madison curating artist retreats for queer creators. Mackenzie and Sophia's love deepened, a quiet anchor, while Madison began to paint again, portraits of women bold and unapologetic. Her first gallery show in Seville, a tribute titled Roots Unseen. Casa del Sol endured, not as a monument to loss, but a testament to mending. Under the cork oak, the siblings renewed their oath, hands clasped, the American dream of reinvention alive in Spanish soil. Love, Mackenzie learned, wasn't erased by death or betrayal. It was the stubborn vine that grew through stone, reaching always for the light. As the first anniversary of Elena and Jack's passing approached, Casa del Sol transformed under the weight of tentative healing. The vineyards, once a symbol of fractured inheritance, now buzzed with new life, volunteers from Ronda's LGBTQ+ center arriving weekly, their laughter mingling with the clip of shears and the earthy tang of turned soil. Mackenzie moved through it all with a grace born of grief's forge, her auburn hair tied back in a practical ponytail, green eyes softened by Sophia's steady presence. Sophia, at 35, brought a grounded rhythm to the chaos. Her potter's hand shaping mugs from local clay for the villa's cafe. Her stories of growing up queer in Franco's lingering shadows a balm to Mackenzie's raw edges. Their love was a quiet revolution, unfolding in the stolen hours between tours and tastings. Mornings began with coffee on the patio, Sophia's dark curls tousled from sleep, her olive skin glowing in the dawn light as she teased Mackenzie about her American obsession, with strong brew over delicate cortados. Afternoons blurred into walks along the Tahoe Gorge, where the river carved secrets into limestone cliffs, and evenings ended with dances in the kitchen. Sophia's hips swaying to flamenco playlists laced with Joan Baez. Mackenzie's laughter free for the first time in years. Madison's return marked the true turning point. She'd emerged from Granada not as the prodigal, but as a force, her sketchbook brimming with raw, unfiltered works that captured the ache of hidden desires. "I was running from myself," she confessed over a dinner of Elena's recipe book staples. Albondigas simmering in tomato sauce, the air thick with cumin and memory. At 28, Madison had always been the ethereal one. Long blonde waves framing a face of delicate angles, blue eyes like fractured sea glass, but now there was steel beneath the softness, forged in solitude. "Coming out for you. Cracked me open. I loved a woman there, in the Alhambra's shadows. But I buried it, afraid it'd shatter us all." Mackenzie reached across the table, her fingers lacing with her sister's. "It didn't shatter. It showed us the cracks were already there." Mateo's absence loomed, his text-curt updates from Barcelona. Deals closing, life accelerating. But even he softened, mailing a check for vineyard upgrades, irrigation systems with a note. "For Dad's grapes. Don't let them dry out." The high summer heat wave tested their fragile truce. Tourists flooded the finca, drawn by Instagram reels of rainbow-streaked sunsets and wine flights paired with Sophia's handmade ceramics. Mackenzie orchestrated it all, her architect's mind-mapping flow. Welcome tints under olive boughs, tasting rooms with views of the Puente Nuevo's defiant span. Yet beneath the bustle old wounds festered. One blistering afternoon as thunderheads gathered like uninvited guests, a letter arrived, certified, from Mateo's solicitor. A formal challenge to the will's apportionment, citing undue influence and familial discord. The notary's seal gleamed like a taunt. Mackenzie's hand shook as she read it in the bodega, the cool dimness a refuge from the sun's glare. Sophia found her there, slumped against barrels stamped with their parents' initials. "They can't take this," Sophia said fiercely, pulling her close, the scent of clay and jasmine grounding her. "Not legally, not morally. But fighting. It'll cost more than money." That night, the storm broke in earnest, rain lashing the villa like accusations. Madison, staying for the weekend, paced the living room, her sundress clinging damply as she dashed in from the garden. "Mateo's always been the bulldozer," she fumed, blonde hair plastered to her shoulders. "But this? It's betrayal twice over. First emotionally, now on paper." The call came at midnight, Mateo's voice tinny through the line, rain a percussion behind his words. "It's business, Kinsey. Not personal. The app's tanking. I need liquidity. You keep the house, sell the land." His tone was all Silicon Valley edge, stripped of the boy who'd once built sandcastles with them on Costa del Sol beaches. Mackenzie's retort was steel-wrapped in sorrow. "Business? This is our blood in the soil, Teo. Mom and Dad didn't raise us to commodify family." Madison snatched the phone, her voice a whip crack. "What about us? You erase her, you erase me too. I'm done hiding for you for anyone." Silence stretched, broken only by static and sobs. When Mateo spoke again, it was small, the brother peeking through the mogul. I didn't come out. Never had to. But seeing you both, it made me feel like the fraud. Like my straight, successful life was the only one that counted. I'm scared, okay? Of failing them." The admission hung, a lifeline tossed into turbulent waters. They talked until dawn, three voices weaving through the storm, unspooling years of envy and fear. Mateo's ventures a mask for inadequacy. Madison's art a scream deferred. Mackenzie's strength, a shield cracked by isolation. By sunrise, the challenge was withdrawn, emails flying to solicitors with apologies in legalese. But peace, like vintage wine, required aging. Fall brought the Harvest Festival, a Rivera tradition Elena had cherished. Lanterns strung through vines, locals and expats mingling over asados and acoustic sets by queer musicians from Malaga. Mackenzie and Sophia danced under the lights, Sophia's laughter a melody against the guitar's strum, her hand warm at Mackenzie's waist. Madison unveiled her exhibit in the tasting room. Canvases of women entwined in olive branches, titles like Veiled Vows and Sister Shadows. Critics from Seville raved, but it was Mateo's arrival, suit traded for linen shirt, that sealed the night's magic. He pulled Mackenzie aside by the cork oak, the ancient tree's branches a canopy of forgiveness. "I was wrong," he said simply, 26 going on wise. "About the will, about everything. Let's rebuild. Together." His dark hair, tousled as in childhood photos, caught the lantern glow, and for a moment, he was the little brother chasing them through groves. Madison joined them, sketchbook in hand, sketching the trio in quick, loving strokes. "To roots," she toasted later, glasses clinking under stars that seemed brighter, closer. Sophia watched from afar, her smile a quiet anchor, knowing love's true measure in the spaces between. Yet drama like the Sirocco circled back. Winter whispered threats. A developer from Marbella, eyes on the finca's prime perch, approached Mateo with an offer that could fund empires. He resisted, but temptation gnawed. Mackenzie sensed it in his clipped calls, the way his gaze lingered on the gorge's expanse during visits. Madison, too, felt the pull. Her art gaining traction, galleries in Madrid beckoning, a life beyond the villa's embrace. The climax crested on Elena's would-be 61st birthday, a raw February day when mist clung to the hills like unresolved grief. The family gathered for a private ritual, planting a new vine in the memorial garden, Elena's favorite Tempranillo hybrid. Sophia tended the soil, her hands steady. Mackenzie held the sapling, its roots delicate as hopes. Madison read from Elena's journals, passages on love's unyielding bloom. Her voice steady until it cracked on "Family is the soil we choose." Mateo arrived late, rain-slicked, a folder under his arm. The developer's proposal, glossy renders of condos eclipsing the groves. "Hear me out," he pleaded as thunder grumbled. "It could secure us all. Trusts, scholarships. Mom's legacy amplified." Betrayal's echo roared back, sharper now. Mackenzie's face drained of color. "Secure? By paving paradise? This isn't amplification. It's amputation." Madison whirled on him, blue eyes flashing. "You promised. Under this tree, remember? No more erasure." The courtyard confrontation unfolded like a tempest. Voices rising over wind-whipped jasmine, accusations flying like olive pits. "You're the selfish one," Mateo shot at Mackenzie, old wounds reopening, clinging to ghosts while the world moves on. Sophia stepped in, her calm a bulwark. "Enough. This isn't about land, it's about loss. We've all grieved differently, but choosing greed over each other? That's the real haunt." Madison, tears mingling with rain, clutched the journal to her chest. "I choose us," she declared, voice breaking. "I came out last month. To the gallery, to friends. Because of you, Kinsey. Because Mom and Dad showed me how. Don't make me choose again." The words landed like lightning, illuminating fractures and facets. Mateo's shoulders slumped, the folder sodden in his grip. He tore it, pages scattering like confetti in the gale. "God, what am I doing?" He sank to the tiles, head in hands. Mackenzie knelt beside him, arm around his shaking frame. "Healing, Teo. Messy as hell, but we're in it." Madison joined, the three a huddle against the storm, Sophia's umbrella a fragile dome. In that vulnerability, bonds reforged, not seamless but strong in their scars. The vine planted, roots delving deep, a symbol of persistence. Spring unfurled with cautious joy. Mateo's app pivoted to sustainable AG tech, partnering with Casa del Sol for vineyard drones. Madison's Seville show sold out, proceeds funding a queer youth art program at the finca. Mackenzie and Sophia spoke of futures, civil unions in Madrid, perhaps a potter's studio annex. Love in all its forms wove through the days. Sisterly brunches with mimosas and Madison's latest sketches. Brotherly barbecues where Mateo grilled burgers with American flair, regaling volunteers with startup war stories. One golden June evening, as fireflies danced like errant stars, the siblings gathered under the cork oak. To not erasing, Mackenzie toasted, glasses of Tempranillo raised. Laughter followed, genuine, laced with the bittersweet tang of growth. Parents gone but their love. A bridge across oceans and wounds endured. In Spain's embrace, with American hearts beating defiant, they chose each other. Again and again. The second summer at Casa del Sol dawned with a fierceness that mirrored the family's rebirth. Sun scorching the earth, coaxing grapes to swollen promise, while cicadas chorused approval from the groves. Mackenzie, now 33, had settled into her role as steward with a quiet authority, her designs expanding the villa into a haven. Eco-cabins dotting the hills, each with private terraces overlooking the gorge, themed around queer icons, from Virginia Woolf's writing nooks to Audre Lorde's poetry libraries. Sophia's influence bloomed everywhere. Hand-thrown tiles and mosaic murals depicting intertwined hands, her pottery kiln humming in a sunlit outbuilding, firing vessels that held not just wine but stories. Their partnership was the steady pulse beneath it all. Sophia, with her easy strength and wry humor, had become the villa's unofficial heart. "You're building an ark," she teased one morning, as they surveyed the new cabins from the rooftop, her arm slung around Mackenzie's waist. At 36 now, Sophia's features had deepened, fine lines at her eyes from years of squinting at clay, her dark curls threaded with silver like veins of quartz. "For all the outcasts washing up on these shores." Mackenzie leaned into her, inhaling the familiar mix of earth and citrus. "Ours first." Their kiss was soft, unhurried, the kind that spoke of mornings merged and nights navigated. No grand gestures but a romance etched in the everyday. Sophia's notes tucked into Mackenzie's blueprints. "Don't forget to dream big, amor." And Mackenzie's habit of tracing Sophia's scars with fingertips, mapping histories into futures. Madison's evolution paralleled the season's arc. Her art had catapulted her into Spain's queer scene, features in El País magazines dubbing her the voice of veiled passions. At 29, she'd cut her blonde waves to a chin-length bob, a symbolic shearing, and moved into one of the cabins full-time, her studio a riot of color overlooking the vines. "No more running," she declared upon arrival, unpacking crates of canvases alive with bold strokes, women in profile against stormy skies, lovers silhouetted in olive silhouettes. Her coming out had rippled outward. A girlfriend named Lucia, a fiery poet from Córdoba with tattooed verses snaking up her arms, who joined family dinners with recitations that left them all breathless. Mateo, the wild card, had surprised them most. His pivot to green tech had taken root. The app now tracked carbon footprints for small farms, with Casa del Sol as flagship. Barcelona visits became weekly, his sleek apartment traded for weekends in the guest wing, where he'd tinker with prototypes on the patio, dark hair perpetually rumpled, his once rigid jaw softened by stubble and smiles. "Who knew dirt could be profitable?" he'd quip, handing Mackenzie a drone footage reel of the groves thriving under his algorithms. Yet beneath the harmony, undercurrents stirred. The developer's shadow lingered, whispers in Ronda's markets of bigger offers, corporate eyes on Andalusia's expat enclaves. Mateo fielded calls discreetly, his entrepreneurial itch flaring. "Just hypotheticals," he'd assure, but Mackenzie caught the flicker in his eyes, the echo of that torn folder. The conflict reignited subtly, a spark in dry tinder. It was harvest time, the air heavy with fermenting sweetness, when a festival guest, an affluent American couple from Napa, scouting expansions, dangled a partnership, joint ventures, branding synergies. They wined and dined under the lanterns, toasting global family. But their pitch to Mateo afterward in the bodega's hush was pure capitalism. Buy out the sisters. Modernize. Turn this into the Hamptons of Spain. Mateo wavered, the temptation a siren's call to his ambitions. He confided in no one at first, but guilt carved lines in his face. Madison noticed during a sibling hike along the gorge trails, the path winding like a vein through limestone. "You're pulling away again," she accused gently, her bob swinging as she paused by a wild thyme patch. Lucia waited below, waving from a picnic blanket. "Like before. What's haunting you?" He confessed over shared figs, juice staining his fingers. "The offer. It's huge. Could fund everything, your art center, Kinsey's builds, my tech for the world." But his voice hollowed. "Feels like selling souls." Madison's retort was swift. "It is. We clawed back from that edge last year. Don't drag us over again. She linked arms with him, sister to brother, pulling him toward clarity. Betrayal isn't just the act, it's the secrecy before. The warning reached Mackenzie via a late-night text from Madison. Talk to him. Before it festers. Heart pounding, Mackenzie cornered Mateo the next dawn in the vineyard. Dew-kissed rose stretching like promises. Sophia had risen early for market, leaving them alone, a rare bubble. Tell me it's not happening, Mackenzie demanded, green eyes locking on his. Mateo deflated, leaning against a trellis. I turned it down. Last night. But damn Kenzie, the pull. It's like proving I'm not the failure they always said I'd be. The admission cracked open old scars. His boyhood insecurities, overshadowed by the sister's talents. The straight son's unspoken pressure to carry the normal banner. Mackenzie's anger softened to empathy. We all carry that. But erasing the past to chase approval? It's a ghost chase. They embraced then, brother and sister under the rising sun. The vines a witness to mending. The true climax brewed through autumn. As leaves turned copper and winds carried hints of winter. A regional expo in Seville beckoned. A showcase for agritourism, where Casa del Sol's queer-inclusive model could shine. Madison curated the booth. Interactive murals, wine tastings with Sophia's ceramics, drone demos from Mateo. Mackenzie handled logistics, her blueprints for a community center pavilion the crown jewel. Excitement built, but sabotage slithered in. Anonymous tips to expo organizers, rumors of unstable family ownership, whispers of disputes that could disrupt proceedings. The source traced to a disgruntled ex-developer, but the damage landed on Mateo's doorstep. His app's beta testers pulling out, fearing association with drama. Paranoia fractured them. Accusations flew at a tense family council in the living room. Fire crackling in the hearth Elena had loved. You leaked it, didn't you? Madison hurled at Mateo, her bob disheveled, Lucia's hand a steadying force on her knee. To force a sale. Mateo's denial was thunderous. Me? After everything? You're the one gallivanting with poets. Maybe your spotlight hogging stirred the pot. His face flushed, the old defensiveness roaring back. Mackenzie, caught in the crossfire, slammed her palm on the table. Stop. This isn't us against us. It's the world trying to divide what we've built. Sophia, ever the mediator, poured wine, her voice calm as clay centering. Breathe. We're Riveras. We bend, we don't break. The raw honesty that followed stripped them bare. Mateo admitted courting the developer quietly, just in case. His fear of failure a noose. Madison owned her resentment of his easy path, her queerness a harder forge. Mackenzie confessed the exhaustion of holding the line. The nights doubting her worth post-parents. Tears flowed, hugs mended, Lucia reciting a poem on resilience that sealed the night. In the gorge's echo we find our roar. They rallied for Seville, the expo a triumph. Crowds thronged the booth, media buzzing over the American-Spanish queer oasis. Offers poured in, not sales but collaborations. Grants for the art center, tech partnerships for sustainable vines. Mateo demoed with flair, Madison's murals drawing gasps, Mackenzie's pavilion plans sparking investor fires. Sophia's ceramics sold out, her quiet pride beaming. Back at the villa, under December's first snow, a rarity in Rhonda, blanketing the groves like forgiveness, the family gathered for solstice. Lanterns glowed. A feast of Elena's roasts and Jack's pies awaited. Madison and Lucia announced plans for a spring wedding in the garden. Mateo revealed his app's first major funding, earmarked for the finca. Mackenzie and Sophia exchanged rings, simple clay bands etched with vines, a private vow amid the cheer. As midnight tolled, they stood under the cork oak, snowflakes catching in hair and lashes. To endurance, Mackenzie whispered, arms around siblings and loves. Mateo grinned, snow-dusted. To not erasing ever. Madison sketched the scene in the frost, her line sure. In the years that followed, Casa del Sol became legend. A beacon for expats and locals, weddings under arches, retreats birthing art and innovation. Elena and Jack's spirits lingered in every toast, every bloom. Betrayal's shadow faded. Eclipsed by choice, fierce, familial, forever. Love, Mackenzie knew, was the ultimate inheritance. Not land or legacy, but the grace to rebuild root by tender root.